Hi, everybody. Welcome to My Favorite Mistake. I'm Mark Graven. I'm really excited to be joined today by Lenny Walls. He's a friend of mine from when I used to live back in San Antonio a couple years ago. And before I introduce him a little bit more formally, Lenny, it's great to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Great to see you, my friend. Been a long time.
It has. I'm glad we could do this, and I think it's going to be a great conversation. Let me introduce Lenny a little bit more. I think he's a remarkable person on many levels. The things he's done, the things he continues to do. He played cornerback in the NFL for 6 seasons in Denver, Kansas City, and St. Louis. He was the tallest cornerback in the league at 6'4", and I'll tell you, to this day, he is probably the fittest person I know. And I know this from Lenny's work now, as one of the things he does is working as a certified personal trainer. So don't judge his work by looking at me. That's Lenny's really good at what he does. I was only able to work out with him for a couple of months before having to move, but I learned a lot from that, and I think maybe we'll touch on that a little bit today. But additionally, in his post-football career, Lenny is a community leader. He's the president of the Breaking Down Walls Foundation. There's a lot of great events and youth activities in San Antonio. Lenny's an entrepreneur. He coaches businesses and leaders through Walls2Walls Coaching. So, Lenny, again, thank you. Thank you for being here.
I'm honored, man. Appreciate it. It's just an honor to be on and to be able to inspire some people. Hopefully, I think that's why we're all here, is to pay it forward and to contribute in some kind of way with our voices and our stories. And I admire you. I've always admired you and your business etiquette and just being a great person. Most importantly, it's always a treasure to show up to the Broadway and kick your butt for an hour or so, whatever it was. But yeah, I'm honored to be on, man, and it should be fun.
Yeah, and it's funny, if you could see my notes right here, one of the things I jotted down to say was that exact phrase: "You kicked my butt." But you taught me a lot, and it was motivating. And so I was working out this morning. I should have left my workout clothes on, because one of the things you taught me was to keep at it and push through and have good habits. I've tried to maintain that, but it's a struggle sometimes.
Very good. Balance is key, man. A lot of us struggle, balancing out family and career and health. And I pride myself on doing my best, doing my best to be balanced. And we all know that that's key in life.
It is. So, I think one of the things that's important in life, as we talk about often, all the time here on the podcast, is learning from mistakes. And so I'm going to throw it right at you, Lenny. What would you say is your favorite mistake?
This was very difficult for me, as you know. I almost thought about some of the investments where I lost money and stuff like that, but I really didn't see those as my favorite mistakes. I think the favorite mistake for myself would be just having a lack of humility during my most successful time in my life. I think that would be my biggest mistake. Not having enough gratitude and not being, not showing and demonstrating enough humility during the most successful time of my life. Because it's easy to be, humble kind of when you're down. But when I was playing at the height of my career in the NFL, I kind of regret, I guess I couldn't say regret, because with all mistakes, we learn from them, and we should learn from them. Just not having enough humility when I was at the highest point in my life.
So can you think of some examples, or how did you come to sort of reflect upon that looking back? I mean, some of that is age and maturity. How did this start to become clear to you?
Not a couple examples, just not heeding advice of players who had been there before me. And now I love the idea of having a mentor. I have one now. Not listening to people who had been there before me. Sometimes we can think we're more awesome than we really are. And you have a certain level of confidence that can turn into arrogance, to where maybe you don't prepare or train as hard as you may need to, or you should have, because now you've made it. When you get to a certain level of income, when you come from the inner city like me, a guy who grew up in poverty, who didn't have any much sources from a monetary standpoint, to be able to have that kind of income now, and to think that you've arrived when, hey, you're a 24, 25-year-old kid, you still have your whole life ahead of you. And so just understanding that and living and learning through those rocky roads, I would definitely say lack of humility, because when when you're humbled, you're open up to more learning. You're opened up to more growth. And I always tell people humility is not stupidity. You know, we don't know it all. We should always continue to keep that in mind.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you, like you said, you know, you grew up in the inner city, you ended up at Boston College as a student there playing football.
Yeah. Wow.
There was that rise. And then, you know, I was kind of looking back at some of the notes about your career of being an undrafted free agent. And then, you know, your second season in the league, starting all 16 games.
Absolutely.
In Denver. So can you talk a little bit more about that rise? Because, you know, there's quite a lot of accomplishment there, and I'm sure there was a lot to be proud of.
Absolutely. You know, and that's one thing, going in undrafted when I was projected to go first or second round, and to go in undrafted with a chip on my shoulder, I think that experience humbled me. And I worked really, really hard to get on the field, you know, because I was that guy coming in who didn't have a big signing bonus where they could cut very, very easily. And so me understanding and knowing that made me work really, really hard. And then to be able to start all 16 games in my second season, you know, finally get in my next season to 7 figures of income. I think sometimes you forget sometimes where you how hard you had to work and where you've come from. And that's one lesson that I think I learned, again, maybe the hard way. You find out in my third and fourth seasons, I started to, you know, get some injuries. I had some really, really tough injuries. And I just feel like, you know, if I had been a little bit more grateful, because gratitude is the seed to receiving more, as you know, the more grateful we are, the more blessings we tend to receive. And that's a lesson I had to learn really through life's experiences in football, to just be a little more humble. Yeah.
Because the average career in the NFL is pretty short. And
3 or 4 years, maybe tops. Yeah.
And when you entered the league, I mean, I've heard a little bit, the NFL has started, I think, a formal program for players coming into the league to sort of help set expectations that, hey, this doesn't last forever. I mean, I guess, you know, like Tom Brady or Drew Brees are rare exceptions, but, you know,
yeah, exactly.
different guys. They're not allowed to get hit, really, so it's different than what you were facing. But did the NFL have that when you came into the league?
Well, I think that they should improve it. They have what we call the Rookie Symposium, and check this out: undrafted guys don't even go.
Oh, interesting. Oh.
So drafted guys get a chance to go, but it's kind of like, I want to say it's a 1 or 2 day event where all the rookies show up, and they have, you know, I don't know if it's former players because I didn't attend it, and different people maybe counseling them and preparing them for the journey ahead. But again, I think it should be something that's ongoing. It's just, you know, a 2 day or 3 day event or whatever, where they just kind of engulf them into this place where they kind of talk them through what's going to happen. Maybe talk to them. I'm sure they talked about finances and how to manage money, but I have no idea because I didn't attend. But that's still not enough. We need something continuously, you know, throughout the journey. I think where we can go to someone for help. I mean, that's another big thing in the NFL. You know, we have this mucho mentality where, you know, if something's going on, you know, outside of football, we tend to not want to talk about it or discuss it. And I think that that's very, very important because we can get our philosophy refined and we can get a different insight. You know, it can really help us down the road. And I don't think the NFL has enough in place for guys like myself once we actually start succeeding and you know, developing in the NFL.
Yeah, because you think there could be a program, you know, after that first season of players like yourself who is clear we're going to stick in the league for a while. Yeah. Maybe better late than never.
Absolutely. I would totally agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing I've really been dying to ask you, you know, you're the first professional athlete I've been able to interview here on the podcast. Cool. And I'm curious, you know, what was your mindset about the idea of making mistakes on the field? I mean, you might have 75,000 fans in person. There might be millions of people watching you on TV. What do you remember about this idea of, you know, making a mistake and your reaction to that?
Yeah, well, at the cornerback position, you definitely can't be too concerned with making mistakes. You have to play so fast. I mean, the game is so fast. And even at that position, we was taught to have a short-term memory. You know, you have to focus on the next play because if you get down about a particular play before that happened, it's going to kill you. And come fourth quarter when the game's on the line. And so that's what I love about the game. It taught me a lot about bouncing back, to have a short-term memory. Failures are just stepping stones towards winning. And we all have to go through that process, no struggle, no progress. And so I really had a short-term memory. I never really worried about making mistakes when I played. One thing I did worry about when later in my career was, the injuries, and that was a big one for me because, having a couple surgeries in 2004, then coming back in 2005 and having to play with those injuries in the back of my mind. Now you're thinking about your contract. Now you're thinking about feeding your family and not wanting to go down. And so now you may be a little hesitant with how you play the game. Whereas in the beginning, I was just reckless, and that's the mentality that we're taught to have and that I was taught to have. And so if anything kind of slowed me as far as making mistakes would be the injuries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've heard that phrase, the short memory, like on sports talk shows, ESPN. Have you seen the show Ted Lasso?
I have not seen it.
I think you should watch this. It's on Apple Plus. It's about an American football coach from like D2 who gets hired to go coach an English Premier League football team, soccer team. And there's a scene where Ted Lasso tells one of the players on his team, he says, what memory? I butchered that mistake. Do you know what animal has the shortest memory? And he says, a goldfish. And he's trying to convince the player who was upset at himself about something. He says, be a goldfish.
I've never heard of that one.
Yeah.
I wonder why would he say that?
Yeah, I think just trying to tell him, hey, put the mistake behind you, and sort of like you were describing.
Yes, absolutely. You have to. I mean, you have to, and you learn that. You don't have time to worry about what happened in the past. You kind of got to focus on moving forward. And it's the same thing with life. Football teaches you a lot about life, and we all make mistakes, but we can all change. It's never too late to change, grow, fix the situation, bounce back, and football teachers taught me a lot about that.
Yeah. So before we talk about, your transition in the second career and how you bring lessons from one world into the other world, one other thing I wanted to ask about, kind of the process of, let's say there's a play on the field, you make a mistake, you put it behind you. At a certain point, either I'm guessing like, when you're on the sideline or during halftime or during the next practice, the coaches, I imagine there's some process to review something that went wrong, whether you call it a mistake or getting beat or whatever, and then at some point learn from it. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Well, for sure. We definitely want to correct those mistakes so that they don't continue to happen. Just because we make a mistake doesn't mean it's cool to continue to do it. So
right.
A lot of times we have our coaches are up in the booth and they see things, and when you have that bird's eye view, so to speak, you can see everything that's taking place. You come to the sideline and a lot of the times, if you make a mistake, you ever see the players get on the phone on the sideline, or that player's on the phone talking to one of the coaches up in the booth, or even if a coach on the sideline can see it from the field level, tend to correct you. And when we come off the field, that's when we talk about it. And that's when we discuss a way to be able to deal with the situation. Throughout the week, when we come in, we watch the entire film. We watch every defensive snap from that game. As a defensive a team, and we go through it. Sometimes it takes us 2 hours to finish the film, but we go through it and we correct it and we see how we can get better from it, so that the next week, next Sunday, we can be better off.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely a process there.
Yeah, because I think you know this, and I've mentioned before in the podcast, the only thing that ever got me on a football field was being in the marching band. It's a very different experience, and
y'all kept me hyped up.
yeah, that was a big part of what we tried to do. But I think about reviewing game film. So the only opportunity I've really ever gotten to do that is, let's say, as a speaker, working with a speaking coach, or even you learn to do it on your own. It's painful. Like everybody says, I hate watching video of myself talk, but you've got to do it so you can pick up on things. Yes. That you want to do better. So I don't know, is that any sort of habit that you've carried forward? You do speaking and all sorts of different things. Do you ever review game film now?
Yeah, for the few speaking engagements that I have done, I haven't spoken as much as you have, and I love the challenge of speaking, the rush of it, of getting in front of a crowd and being able to give some insight. And it's all about helping others, So I've learned to remove myself from the situation and just make it about the people that I'm talking to, because that's who I want to help and encourage. But yeah, I've definitely I did that first, but now I always have somebody, a videographer, kind of record me when I go do some consulting, or I speak to a small business group of managers, or whatever the case may be, to correct maybe in where I made a mistake, correct maybe my something I could have said maybe better or in a different way as far as delivery. There's a lot of things that you can do, and it definitely carries over from what I learned from football as well.
Yeah. So with all the things that you've been doing post football, is there a particular lesson that comes to mind, something that you brought from your football experience into the business world?
Anything that comes to mind in particular? Well, one thing that I can take is you can never stop growing. And one thing about myself and what I've learned from football is, you have to continue to focus on your education. You have to continue to, and whether that's, like Peyton Manning, one of the all-time greats. I have a lot of respect for Peyton Manning. There were times where, I heard Peyton Manning say one time, he takes about 2 weeks off after the offseason, after the season's over. After January, February, whatever the case may be, he takes about 2 weeks off and he's right back at it. He's watching film. He's back to the drawing board. And a lot of times during my offseason, the season's over, I couldn't wait to go party and live it up for 3 months until it was time to go back to camp. And so what I've learned is to develop better habits each and every day, no matter where I'm at in my life. And whether that's reading a good book, whether that's talking to a mentor, but just continuing to put education and growth first in your life, or something else will take over. A lot of things, the entertainment world is very distracting. There's a lot of things out there that can take you off of your game and away from your purpose. And so knowing that I played in the NFL, but also realizing too that, a 6-year career is good, but why didn't I play 12? Right? How, there's some things that I probably could have done, whether it's taking care of my body or whatever the case may be, to be a better person and a better player. And now I don't ever want to take life itself for granted, because the biggest asset that we have in life is time, and life is very, very short. So that's what I really can take into anything else that I'm doing with my life.
Yeah.
Continue to grow.
Yeah. Well, it's great advice, and it's a great reminder. And so you said, the word entertainment, and one thing I was going to ask you about was a phrase I've heard you use a lot, and I see it there on your right hand. The hustle is entertainment.
Yeah.
What's that phrase mean to you?
I coined that phrase about 6 years ago. Again, one of my mentors, he was with me when me and my ex-wife were doing some direct sales with a company, and he told me, he said, Lenny, in this day and age, there's so much opportunity everywhere. There's opportunity everywhere. There's information at our fingertips. And he said, but the biggest reason why people fail in life is that they're too busy entertaining themselves rather than educating themselves. And that really resonated with me, because, we can find ourselves watching, as much as we love sports and entertainment, we can find ourselves doing things for 2 or 3 hours that have nothing to do with our purpose, that have nothing to do with our goals. And so the hustle is entertainment is all about making whatever your hustle is, whether that's becoming the greatest speaker, or writing the most amount of books on leadership, or if it's, transforming lives through health and wellness, whatever your dreams and goals are and what God put you here for, make sure that you don't get caught up and make that hustle, that particular thing, your source of entertainment, and rather than kind of getting bombarded by mass media and everything else that's going on. All the politics and things that we see now going on in the world. People get really caught up in all of this stuff. And yes, we got to have a certain level of awareness. But again, it goes back to that balance. How much are you getting caught up into these things rather than doing the things that God put you here to do?
Yeah. So when you talk about that sense of purpose, what God put us here to do, and and what you're saying there, it makes me think of the idea of if you really love what you do, you're in that state of flow. That probably puts us into a state where instead of binge watching some show, we're binge working. I don't know if that
I like
makes
it.
any
That's
sense.
exactly what the hustle is entertainment is all about. That's kind of what it's about. It's kind of saying, okay, let's make what we love to do and what we're put here to do our most important source of entertainment. Make it the most important source of entertainment. And when you love it, it becomes really, really fun. You're very, very passionate about that. Whether it's, contributing to a group of kids, that's I have Breaking Down Walls because my purpose is to inspire the youth. It's to inspire young kids to be bigger than their circumstances. I grew up, and both my parents in the 80s sold drugs. I grew up in a harsh environment, and all the odds were against me to be successful, but somehow I was able to do it. So I identify with a lot of people, especially kids who may be going through certain things at the moment. It's never too late for you, and so kind of sharing my story and testimony with them about that makes them think, okay, yeah, I can make the hustle my entertainment too.
Yeah. So, when you were sharing reflections, I just want to make, some connections to what you shared about, maybe your early days in the NFL. And now the tables are turned. You might be in a situation of coaching, a hotshot high school athlete or somebody who's on his way up. Have you had a situation where now you're sort of trying to coach somebody who maybe in some ways reminds you of yourself, and what does that bring up?
Yeah, every kid is different. I remember one particular kid that I was mentoring, just trying to help him deal with the fact that his dad was about to get out of prison and hadn't been there for him. But just reminding him that you only get one father, and teaching him that, second chances are necessary, and usually people deserve that. And having sympathy and empathy for others is important. And I remember just, talking to him about it and looking to prepare him for that. And, there's probably a lot of people in his ear telling him, hey, your dad's never been there, so who is he to tell you anything, or why would you build a relationship with him? And I was just encouraging him to give him the benefit of the doubt, just because I know, I lost my dad when I was 5 years old. He didn't even make it to 40. But just knowing that my mom had made some mistakes, but understanding the environment, understanding all the positive things that she did do for me, and amongst all of that, and how I owe it to her that I was still even able to make it out of the situation and get her a home and get her out of that environment. Sometimes you just have to. It's all about love, man. At the end of the day, it's all about being the light. Once we're born, it's all about this tug of war between good and evil. And I'm just here to make sure that, there's more good in the world. And I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Wow. That's very nicely said. So it's hard to transition from that beautiful thought to, okay, well, what other question was I going to ask you? But
I don't throw you off, Mark. No,
it's all right. That's a lot to think about. So maybe we talk a little bit about, the work you do as a certified personal trainer or a certified athletic trainer. I was going to ask, I was going to ask you about mistakes people make when they're working out, but first I was going to volunteer. You're laughing. You're thinking about the mistakes I made. I'm going to share one with you, and you can pile on if you want. But working out with you, like with weights, you recognize very quickly and taught me, like when if it gets really hard after 10 reps, it's those next couple reps that are important. And when I would have a tendency to say, okay, it's gotten difficult, that's time to stop, you taught me no.
Absolutely.
Push through. That's a lesson that stuck with me.
For sure. I mean, that's a lesson in life right there, right? That's where you get your greatest, when it hurts the most. A lot of times when you're working on a project or you need to get something done, or, if you're taking a bar for law school, it's when the thing gets most challenging, that's when you experience the greatest changes in your life. And the same thing with your muscles. I always tell people, it's anybody can do the first 8 reps, first 10 reps. It's getting those next 2 out if you have a set of 12, or those next 5 out when you have a set of 15. That's where you're going to get your greatest gains. And it's kind of like, where, they always talk about getting outside of your comfort zone. Your pain, if you can understand that your pain is your purpose, and your pain is where you change the game, then you'll learn to embrace those challenges a little bit differently with a lot more mental fortitude. And so, but go back to mistakes, my biggest thing with my clients is their diet. it's easy for me, when I'm looking to do the right thing, or to finish that rep when you have that encouragement. But sometimes you gotta flip that switch on yourself and have the necessary discipline from a nutritional standpoint to really get the results that you want. And so I commend my clients and those people out there who are on this fitness journey, and this journey of optimal health and greater health, to make sure that you understand that nutrition is the most important aspect of it all, what you put in your body and what you fuel your body. That's where the discipline really has to turn on.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. So I think if I'd gotten to work out with you longer, like for one, there was the physical training, there was what you taught me and what we talked about, and I think that next level would have been a more holistic approach.
For sure, absolutely.
And so so it's
more
great you work
approach and stuff like that. Absolutely.
You said
plant-based, just a more plant-based approach to eating and stuff like that. I'm no vegan, but I do understand the importance of whole foods, green leafy vegetables, and stuff like that. I gotta make sure that if I want to live long, you don't want to just live well, but it's good to live long too.
So instead of thinking about the food as entertainment, sometimes that gets us in trouble. If we're just going for what we love, what feels good right now, right?
Yeah, temporary. Yeah, those are temporary pleasures. But you want to have long-term pleasures, which is feeling good, looking good, and all the things that we really, really want. That takes a little bit more effort.
Yeah. So one other thing I was going to kind of bring up that comes to mind here. So a mistake I continue to make is not stretching enough. So I don't know if you remember, like when we were working out, I think you mentioned once, man, that you said I have the tightest hamstrings.
Yeah, I remember that. Have you heard of Stretch Lab or Stretch Zone? Do they have those around?
I've heard about it. Is that worth checking out, you think?
It is. I go once a week. I have a membership over there, and they stretch me out for about 50 minutes. So I stretch a little bit, but I've always been, I guess you can say, somewhat flexible. But I've also had to be flexible because I'm an athlete. But since I've retired, I haven't stretched nearly as much as I did when I played. And so what I've learned is, hey, if you're not going to stretch on your own, and I still work out at a very high level.
Right. Hey,
man, go ahead and hire the expert. Hire someone who will sit there and stretch you out for an hour, and make sure that, your stretch is more optimal. And you can just kind of take the guesswork out. They stretch me from top to bottom, man. I mean, everything, all the muscles. And so I enjoy it. I like it. I get a chance to get away and free my mind for a minute. It's just like getting a massage or something, just like hiring a massage therapist. But those companies are doing really well, and I appreciate them.
Yeah, so it's interesting to think of. It's a coach, it's guidance, it's a mentor, or however you want to phrase it, maybe.
Yep, absolutely. We need those. We need that,
Yeah.
And that's why we work so hard too, to be able to have those people there, so that we can afford to pay them to take care of us, right?
That's a good point. So I've tried to get better about being more disciplined about it, doing my piriformis stretches, and that's a muscle I didn't even know I had until
until you met me.
until you were helping me. So so maybe I need to call you up or engage with you for some remote coaching to give me that pep talk to keep doing my stretches. I'm not trying to.
Even 5 minutes post-workout, 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after you work out, that's not a lot of time. But all those deposits help, especially when you talk about tight hamstrings and tight piriformis muscles. Those muscles all attached to your back. A lot of people have low back pain and a lot of disc pain, and so when you can loosen those things up, it allows you to feel better, makes you more productive throughout your daily life, and everything counts.
Yeah, about a year ago, I've had a lot of pain from a slipped disc. And the one thing that I've learned is, I mean, you know this, but I'm learning, it's all interconnected. So
Absolutely.
Loosening up my hips makes a big difference with my back.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So our guest today has been Lenny Walls. You can learn more about the different things he does at www.walls2walls.org. That's the number 2, walls2walls.org. And then maybe if you want to tell us before we go, it sounds like you told me before we started recording, you've got a new venture, a new thing you're taking on this year. Tell us about that.
Since I retired from football, I've been renting out a small space from a bodybuilder, his studio, and it's been working great. We specialize pretty much in just personal training. It's not a big open membership style gym, a public gym, but it's more private and exclusive, and I'm just ready to expand. Everything is about expanding and growing, and so looking forward to opening my own luxury sports club out on the north side of San Antonio, out near the Dominion. Hopefully by the fall, everything's falling into place, and
Yeah.
excited to be able to service more people. Now I can do more volume training, larger groups instead of just more private lessons. And then I'm also very, very passionate about the young athletes, as you know, to be able to have more of a performance facility with indoor turf. And now I can work with those kids who aspire to take their skills to another level. So I'm excited about it.
Great, great. So look forward to hearing updates from you about that, Lenny. And thank you so much. I'm really excited that you could be a guest here and share all your different perspectives with us.
Absolutely, my friend. It's been fun, man. It's been an honor. Thank you for having me on.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care, man. Talk to you soon.
All right.